Okay, I hear something this morning, and I quickly came into this building. And first time I do an interview like this, but we'll find out what's going on. And what's your name?
I'm David Coon, Executive Director of the Conservation Council.
And we never talk about this before this interview. Margaret Ann Blaney came out with a decision this morning about the wetlands. So, what did she say?
Well, essentially what she said was she was going to get rid of the map, which is fine, the map doesn't matter. But what she said was she was going to have a new map, and it only has about half the wetlands in the province on it, and that if the wetland is not on the map, then they don't care. So, in other words, if the wetland is not on the map, it doesn't exist.
Really?
So that is obviously a big problem. Everyone says they want to protect wetlands, swamps and bogs and all those good things, and in doing this, there's about 50% of the wetlands in New Brunswick that are not on the DNR map they're going to start using now, which is why they didn't use it before, because it was inadequate, didn't have a good coverage of the wetlands. So, the law hasn't changed. It's still completely illegal to fill in a wetland or bulldoze it or change it in any way under the Clean Water Act's, what's it called, Watercourse and Wetlands Alteration Regulation. That's a long title, but that's the name of the regulation. And if you want to do something there, you've got to go get a permit. So the onus is still on the developer or whoever to protect the wetland unless they go get a permit that gives them permission to damage it. However, what the minister seemed to be saying was, if that wetland that's sitting on that property you want to turn into a subdivision is not on the DNR map, then
go for it.
Rev up those bulldozers and fill her in, because it doesn't exist.
And spring is right around the corner in a few days.
Yeah, so we're coming into spring. So what if this is true? If this is true, that means the minister is not upholding her legal mandate to enforce the laws that she's responsible for at the Department of Environment. How can she suggest to her staff that they turn the other way when a developer or someone wants to fill in a wetland if it's not on the map? And pretend that it doesn't exist when it sure as heck is there. So, there you go. And of course, we're just talking about wetlands bigger than a hectare or 2.4 acres or whatever, because the law only applies to bigger wetlands. It doesn't deal with small, sort of puddly things. It deals with big wetlands. And she's made some other changes as well that take a step back. Where before, a developer, if they had a wetland on the property they wanted to put in a subdivision or a big box store or whatever it is, they had to actually have someone come in to figure out where the actual edge of it is, because then you need
30 meters, I think.
Well, but where's the actual boundary of the wetland? Like, it's not like wetlands have a bank, like a stream, or a shore, like a lake. But it takes a little bit to figure out, well, what's the edge of the wetland, and then you can figure out what your buffer is going to be. She's eliminated that requirement. The developers don't have to figure out anymore what the extent of the wetland is. So that's not a requirement. And the other thing is, there used to be there still is this policy, which is, I disagree with, which is if you destroy a wetland, as long as you try and build one somewhere else, then that's okay. Don't think it was okay for the frogs that were in that wetland, or
my cousins, the
dragonfly that were living there, or the salamanders that breeded there, or the heron that were in there, or the beavers, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was, and the rule was you had to, for every acre of wetland you destroyed, you had to create 3 new acres of wetland somewhere else. And she's reduced that requirement to 2 acres. So we can see that the policy has been put into reverse in a sense. The law hasn't changed. So the point is that if anyone wanted to pursue this in court, the law stands up. You still can't destroy a wetland legally, but if the department is being told not to enforce that law if that wetland doesn't show up on the DNR map, Well, what does that say?
So what was that all about this morning? What did she try to do? Showing that she's above the law, or?
Well, I mean, I don't understand why she would want to weaken the protection of wetlands. She's the environment minister, after all. So you would have to ask her that, and New Brunswickers should ask her that. Why are you weakening protection of wetlands? I can understand, and I think it's a fine idea to get rid of the map that everyone was up in arms over. It was just causing a lot of grief for no reason. It was not needed. The former government directed the department to come up with it. So what? You can get rid of it. That's all right. But to then decide what she has decided is worrisome.
You see, I went to her meeting at Fredericton Inn, and I have to admit, I praise her. She stood there for 2 hours. She never sat down. She listened to every concern. She even commented on a few issues. But when I heard yesterday that she was going to come out with a verdict today, I said, my God, that was fast. So was this tour just a publicity stunt, or was the decision made even before she went around this province?
I don't know. I
can't answer.
I can't. I don't know. That's how would you know unless you could read minds? I think
I'm a blogger. I could do that.
It's a good question to ask the minister.
Yeah.
But the frustrating thing I found about those meetings was she did not invite her staff at the beginning to explain the laws governing wetlands and then how this new map that they put on the internet applied. And so she did not take advantage, at least, of the opportunity to try and at least deal with any misunderstandings, then to get down to the nitty-gritty of what were people's real problems.
There was a lot of people that made...
Right, but you want to deal with real problems and not imagined problems because of some misunderstanding.
So is the government going to pass legislation to...
Well, we'll have to... Now, she said nothing about changing the regulation, which of course just requires an order in council. It doesn't have to go to the legislature. If you change a regulation, the cabinet can do that, right? So she didn't say anything about that. She also said nothing about changing the Clean Water Act, which is it all falls under the Clean Water Act, which is where wetlands are defined. So the legal definition of a wetland in our laws is in the Clean Water Act. It's right there, black and white, in English and French. You can read it both ways. So it's the same thing. And she hasn't said anything about changing that either. So that's my point, that the law hasn't changed. The law didn't change before either when they released that map on the internet. They got everyone up in arms. But they were changing some of their administrative procedures. That was the issue. Fine, it's just administrative business. It's not the law. The law is what we've got. So we'll have to watch and see if there's any effort to
Mr. Irving be happy?
Well, I don't think it's so much Mr. Irving as
subcontract.
Lots of developers in municipalities who want to build subdivisions, who want to build big box stores, who want to do that sort of build office buildings and on, who this will reduce their costs.
What's your website?
This is going to reduce their costs because they won't have to hire anyone to find out what the actual boundary of the swamp on their land is. They won't have to, if they're going to destroy a wetland, they're not going to have to create as big a wetland as they would otherwise have to do. So that's
not good.
She just reduced the cost for them.
That's not good. You have a website?
www.ccmbaction.ca.
So anybody wants to complain or concern, they go to your website?
Or our Facebook page. We've got a very active Facebook page. It would be great if people would follow us on Facebook. Just search CCMB Action or Conservation Council of New Brunswick.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.